Let's put this up there on the screen. Yesterday, President Biden announcing that 15 million additional barrels from the US emergency reserves in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve would be released and may consider, quote, significantly more this winter in an effort to ease high gas prices. It is the final tranche of the SPR releases that the White House authorized in the spring for 180 million barrels. Now, the reason that this matters is that it's the end of what was already authorized under executive order. For President Biden to tap the SPR even further, he would actually have to issue a new guidance. Another issue, we're down to almost 400 million barrels that are in the SPR, and we're verging on the territory of it's not full enough. Now, there's a lot to say about this. Number one, it's just an admission by the Biden administration that all their policies so far have really not worked all that well. And from what I've read, Krystal, the SPR is responsible for maybe up to 10 to 15% drop in cents for gas prices over the period.
That's actually more than I thought, to be honest with you.
But this is why it matters, which is that the full dollar or so drop is actually almost entirely attributable to zero COVID from China. So what it means is that Xi Jinping's idiocy as zero COVID lockdowns is almost entirely responsible for any drop in price whatsoever that we have seen.
They're still all
and they're still going.
So
you know, I guess continue doing that, Xi, so that people can drive for a slightly cheaper here. But what it underscores to me is that even now, 8 months into the crisis, they have not come up with any real plan to have a meaningful drop in price. Except for, and I do want to reiterate this, on top of the announcement for the 15 million, they announced something which is potentially significant. They said that we will refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve specifically at a $72 per barrel price. The reason that matters is that it assures production at a above break even for the oil companies. So this is something that, if you'll remember, Skanda Amarnath came on our show. This is a slight version of that plan where they're giving forward certainty to the oil and gas industry, saying, no, guys, like if you do verge onto the level where it's no longer profitable, you should not shut down production because we will buy that oil. It actually gives some stability to the market in the future.
That may seem ridiculous when you're staring at oil prices that right now are quite elevated, but we actually, for the first time in a while, have had a tiny downtick in gas prices. And the reason is because people are afraid of a global recession and because demand is reducing as that recession starts to take hold both here and around the world. So they're looking at that and they're like, I don't know if we should produce more. We could end up getting screwed the way we did during COVID. So that's why putting that sort of floor underneath the prices could make a difference. The other thing they're considering here, which I don't know why they haven't done it already, and I don't know why they're still dragging their feet around it, but they say they're weighing limits on exports of fuel to keep more gasoline and diesel inside the U.S. That's according to sources. No timeline has been set yet for a decision on that potentially more dramatic step. Likely won't happen before the midterms. So anyway, they clearly see, you know, that they had a couple of irons in the fire, you might say. Biden made his little trip over to Saudi.
Failed.
Yeah. That clearly failed. That one didn't work out. The Iran deal doesn't seem to be coming to fruition as Iran is shipping drones to Russia that, you know, or they're
also
using
violently cracking down on their protests.
On their own. So that has complicated the situation with regards to the Iran deal. The one thing that they still have sort of like a live potential international deal is with Venezuela. We covered here, of course, how there was an actual prisoner exchange, which was quite remarkable, involving some U.S. oil executives and some of Maduro's relatives. Quite interesting. And there's also been a deal struck that could help to begin to ease sanctions if they agree to legitimate talks with the opposition. So they're clearly trying to make some moves with Venezuela. Now, would that make a difference? It's so hard to say. You know, the oil markets, as I've tried to explain before, so much of it is really not based just on pure like supply and demand and where does the curve meet. So much of it, like all of our commodities markets and all of our markets, are based around financialization. So it's speculators guessing what other speculators are going to think is going to be the results of these different actions. Venezuela, their oil industry capacity has been severely degraded. There are issues that you know more about that have to do with like processing that particular kind of oil that also complicate the situation. But, you know, you could see if there was some sort of a more comprehensive Venezuela deal that there could be an effect in the market that would, you know, lower the price. We'll see if that ultimately comes to bear. But, you know, a lot of their plans, the big move was to try to suck up to Saudi Arabia, and that clearly did not end up
Massive
working.
backfire. That's what I just look at this and I'm like, what a failure. You had 8 months to get something done. And guess what? Not one of them has worked out. Even Venezuela. Look, if this is the crisis that we believe it is, I believe it, and that President Biden is, diplomacy should take, that prisoner swap should have happened months ago, and then we should have had oil flowing almost immediately. But the truth is that we have basically the exact same level of production as we did when this war started. That's a catastrophe. Either here at home, the refinery choke points. You know, I was looking at what you said, because I'm a huge proponent of locking down our oil and infrastructure and limiting exports. Here's the issue, Krystal. If we do that, we don't have enough refinery capacity at home. And so that means that we would effectively be cutting off export of our oil, and the people abroad would be like, okay, well then we won't give you any of our refined oil. Guess what? We don't have enough refinery capacity to refine even our own oil, which means the price would only go up to $6 a gallon. We are screwed in almost every way because we have no infrastructure, we have no proper plan, and right now, everyone should get on their hands and knees and pray that the Chinese continue to remain the idiots that they are by locking down hundreds of millions of their own people.
Like I said, I mean, the really sad thing is the most likely scenario under which gas prices fall is we fall into a severe recession.
Yeah, right.
I mean, then you have gas prices come down.
That'll work.
What a horrific price to pay. So that's kind of the state of affairs. Obviously not lost on anybody that the move with this latest move with the SPR is coming very shortly before a midterms that we're going to get into in a minute, but where Democratic chances are looking increasingly dicey. They were getting asked about exactly that. Let's take a listen.
Is it politically motivated, sir? This
No,
move
it's not.
3 weeks before the midterms?
Look, it makes sense. I've been doing this for how long now? It's not politically motivated at all. It's motivated to make sure that I continue to push on what I've been pushing on. And that is making sure there's enough oil that's being pumped by the companies so that we have the ability to be able to produce enough gas that we need here at home, oil we need here at home.
Yeah, sure. It has nothing to do with that.
I mean, listen.
Come on.
Well, listen. I mean, here's my thing. This critique sort of annoys me because I'm like, actually, it's a good thing when politicians try to do things that are good and popular for people.
Yes.
There's this whole narrative around like, oh, he's trying to buy votes. It's like, I wish more politicians would try to buy our votes more often, and I wish Biden would try harder to buy more people's votes at this point. We'll get into that more in the midterms. But yeah, I mean, clearly they see the writing on the wall. Gas prices are in real, effect in terms of working class wallets, really devastating, really important. People have to commute to work, makes a huge difference. And there's also a massive psychological toll when you see them going up and up and up. And I really do think in terms of economic indicators, it's almost the most important one in terms of political fortunes. The Saudis know that. I mean, they don't like Biden. They want Trump and the Republicans back. And they have decided, that's certainly part, if not a large part of their calculations saying like, good luck. Good luck in November, Biden.
Let's put the gas price map up on the screen there so you can see exactly where it's still, at $3.83 a gallon. So a little bit less, but not continuing to go down. And it's hovering right around that psychological 4 mark. In California, it's still $5.80. West Coast continues to get hammered with above $5 gas. I think the only place in the West with below 5 is like Utah and Arizona. Illinois, also where we recently were, we made a joke about this in our Chicago live show. I was like, what a disaster. There's some really high gas prices, especially in the city of Chicago. Oof. The point is that as we get closer and closer to the midterms, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, it's just clear that a lot of the fundamentals are really just coming to the very forefront. And some of the Democrats peaked too early. I saw an article in the New York Times. It's like Dems brace for a red October. All the betting markets are moving in the direction of the red wave. There's even talk about like Colorado being up for grab. Now, look, maybe all of that is just as much cope as 17 points for Trump in Wisconsin 17 points for Biden in Wisconsin ahead of the election. But point is, almost every indicator there has always predicted a very large Republican victory. Some of these idiot candidates and others not necessarily doing anything to help, but they are being bolstered by one of the most favorable environments in modern political history, and gas is just a fundamental part of that. So Biden doing himself no favors by not just be like, yeah, look, I'm trying to help people and show that this Democratic administration is doing everything they possibly can, and remind them before the midterm. Just say it. Just say, I don't think there'd be any real consequence. People would be like, okay, as long as I pay less, I don't care. The point being, though, that they know it's a problem, and highlights to me that after 8 months, it's still $3.80. That's really high.
Well, I will say one thing I noticed. Apparently the lowest gas prices in the country, you know what state?
Which is it?
Georgia.
Yeah, I think they have a gas tax. They
Holiday
repealed their
or
gas tax
something.
holiday.
Yeah.
They're near refinery. There's a whole. I remember reading a whole piece about why exactly Georgia has some of the lowest gas. Near, I think Texas also is quite low. Same thing, refinery distance. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.